What is up? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 118, and I am Adam Choit. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram and on YouTube. It's Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. Pretty easy to find. If you're watching, you are already there, so please be sure to subscribe. I appreciate that. I'll just give you the quick websites for all the social media and ways to follow this podcast and all my stuff. It's just TedeschiTrucksPodcast.com. That gives you my link tree for everything related to the show, how to subscribe, and a lot of the band's links related to the band as well, including their fan club, how to join their fan club and official website and all that stuff. And AdamChoit.com for all of my personal stuff and social media and all that. At Adam Choit on Twitter and Instagram if you'd like to follow me. I'm gonna aim to do a Jeff Beck tribute show recap as well. I know that happened before the Susan and ultimately Derek appearance too at Club Ebony, but I would like to recap that one as well. And going to shoot to do that Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Have a fan or two or three, we'll see, on to recap that. Eric Clapton, if you happen to be watching this, you're welcome to join or the podcast anytime, of course. I really seriously, I would love to that's, life goals to talk to Eric Clapton, really just ask him about Jeff Beck and Susan and Derek. Really, that's pretty much, that's all I would ultimately, because he's probably been asked every stupid question in the book a million times about his career and all his music, but I'm happy to chat about that too, of course. That would be amazing. Just wanted to put that out into the universe. I may have tried to direct message some outlets related to his camp. You never know. Just got to throw it out there into the universe. But anyway, for today's episode of this show, I want to recap Susan Tedeschi appearance at Club Ebony, a reopening, I believe, of a club. I'm going to be joined by Tim Jones, who was their fan and a past guest of this show momentarily, and he's going to tell me all about his experience at the show. I saw a couple of clips and a lot of photos and the poster and all that, and I'll share that, and I use that as the YouTube thumbnail, of course. But think I'm done rambling for now, so I think it's time to bring in Tim Jones to tell me about his weekend. So here we go. There he is. I see you.
Hello.
And I hear you. Those are the things we need. You never know. Technical things can be challenging sometimes. So every small hurdle that I get over with this, technically, I like to celebrate. But anyway, how are you?
I'm great. A little road weary, but
right. You were saying
high class worries, right?
Right. Because the show was in the Eastern time zone and you live in the Central time zone. Did I follow that? Am I following that correctly?
Oh, no. Mississippi is also Central.
Oh, man, I feel ignorant or something to that. I feel like I'm supposed to know that. The world doesn't revolve around New York, Chicago, L.A.?
It's a big river, but it's not that big.
I got you. I feel like I'm just going to give you the floor to talk about whatever you'd like and just give me the whole experience of going to the show, how far you traveled and the venue and all that stuff. I'll just pull up some images that you sent me along the way.
All right. Well, I can talk a little bit about, the history of the venue itself and why it's important. And I can do that now, or I can talk.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do that. We won't talk about it the entire time, but I definitely want to know more about it.
Well, I'll put on my historian hat for just a second. For those who are not familiar with this part of the world, the Mississippi Delta is not a delta. That's what happens when the river hits the sea. It's an enormous alluvial plain. It's a place where the Mississippi River flooded and built up topsoil for millennia. And it's some of the most fertile land in the country. And it's not just Mississippi, it's also Arkansas and Northeast Louisiana. But the plantation culture in the Old South went very, very deep there. And after the Civil War, Mississippi got more and more populated by plantations and the workers who worked there and who were almost invariably black, and it was a very very, very segregated and racist culture. And the effect of segregation in the South was to set up these parallel economies. Black people weren't allowed to hang out with, shop with, go to the movies with white people. So if there were not completely separate facilities, or at least segregated facilities, they didn't get to go. So they created their own fun and their own everything. There were whole sections of cities that were dedicated to the same sets of services that we all use. So they'd have their tailors and their grocery stores and everything else. They'd have entertainment venues, and Club Ebony opened after the Civil War. After World War II, and was one of a lot of venues across the country that were operated for, by, and with 100% black audiences, entertainers, promoters, everything. And this was it was subsistence. It was a way that all these entertainers could make a living, and also be in their own communities. Be with the people they wanted to be with, and be who they wanted to be, play what they wanted to play. And the history of Club Ebony reads like a who's who of American music. I mean, it goes back goes back to the beginnings of what we know as blues and rock and roll, and all the greats played there. And it's just a place that's just oozing history. And the cool thing that happened with Club Ebony was that it's been able to keep going. So many, if you travel across rural America, there's so many bombed out downtowns, and Indianola is really not an exception to that. There's a lot of empty storefronts downtown, but this particular business has been able to stay in business, and it had to take on some different forms, and it's seen some really rough times in the last couple of decades. But ultimately, B.B. King bought it, and he would go back to Indianola and have a homecoming concert every year, and he'd play at Club Ebony. And he really, even though he was playing 300 nights a year, he lived in Las Vegas. He was going to Club Ebony on a yearly basis, because those were, that was his friends, his family. That was his roots, and it was really important. So, there you go. He seized the opportunity. He bought the club. After he died, I guess it stayed in the estate, and apparently during the pandemic, it went into, it was like everything else, fell into disuse. And the B.B. King Museum and Interpretive Center is just a few blocks away. First class place. I mean, it is, if you like a music oriented museum, it's as good as any I've ever been to. I mean, it's as good as the Stax one in Memphis. It's very, very well done. They bought it. I guess they got some grant money, put about $800,000 into making it, last. And, I never went in it before it was, before they classed the joint up, but it's really cool. It's really nice inside. And so, as all of this relates to Tedeschi trucks, I don't have an outline or a thesis or anything here, but the thing that I have appreciated about Susan and Derek is how close they are to their roots and how important it is to them to maintain a sense of connection to that, and to honor the history of the music that they're playing. And I think they they haven't told me this, but I can hear it in what they do, what they choose to play, and how they play it. They've got a real sense of appreciation and history, and they want to honor this music. They want to keep it alive. They want to move it forward. But I like to say, sometimes people get into who's the best guitar player, who's the best this and that, and I've always thought that's kind of crazy, because Derek Trucks would not dream of saying he's better than Elmore James. The house is not stronger than the foundation, and the house wouldn't be there without the foundation. And they really have a sense of valuing that history, and so they've been going back to the Delta quite a bit. I guess going back a few years ago, they were at the Wheels of Soul in South Haven, south of Memphis. They did a gig at Dockery Farms, which was where Charlie Patton lived.
I recall that gig, yeah.
It's like they played in a cotton shed. I mean, it was crazy. It was like seeing Tedeschi Trucks in somebody's yard. It wasn't. It was Joe Rice Dockery's yard, in fact. A few years after that, they played at Delta State College in Cleveland, Mississippi, which is the closest town of any size to Dockery. And then just 2 years ago, they did the B.B. King. They opened a new wing of the Interpretive Center through this party, which was kind of tail end of the pandemic. Gary Clark Jr. came. A lot of BB's old band were there. Kingfish was there. Kenny Neal. List goes on. But they were just stellar at that. And again, they're not. I'm not privy to any details. I don't know if they get a dime out of it. Chances are they went and found some boosters who would throw in for the hotel room or something, so it wouldn't cost them money to come. But most of what I hear is these folks are doing it from the goodness of their heart, because supporting and honoring the legacy of B.B. King first and foremost, but also supporting the continuity of Delta musical culture. Great stuff.
Oh man, I really appreciate all of that. That was so well said, and you covered so much and so efficiently. Like just those 5-10 minutes or whatever we spoke alone, I feel like I learned so much, and I feel like I already went to the show. Like I feel like I was already kind of at the venue, and all I've even pulled up is a photo of the outside and just kind of whatever, glanced at some photos that have come out already. But like, yeah, just like, if I feel like if you would have, did you write any, do you write articles or any sort of journalist type music journalism? You do.
My day gig, they pay me to put words together sometimes.
Yeah, you're good with them. Damn, I'm impressed, and like I said, I learned a lot, and I really appreciate just even if we were just to talk about that, and you're like, I gotta go. I'm like, all right, that was cool. I got so much just out of that, and I feel like especially I appreciate it because I'm more likely to process and emotionally engage in information when it's being told from another person and shared from one person to the next in a conversation. So that's important to me. But I feel like this is the ideal venue, and like you said, these cotton sheds and barns, and that's where I would love to see TTB. Is the more intimate, the better. Once in a while in LA, someone who's too big for a venue that's too small for them will play in a cool bar or a cool place, and those are hard to get tickets, and usually raffles or something like that. But how did I don't even know where to begin, but how did this experience, well, I guess it wasn't Tedeschi Trucks band, but I guess just to see Derek and Susan in this type of venue compared to others, is it better, more magical, more intimate,
Well,
I guess.
yeah, it's kind of a trip. I saw Derek Truck's band in a bar a couple of times, and seen Tedeschi Trucks in a couple of kind of intimate venues, but nothing like this at all. Going just the run up to it was kind of weird because nobody knew exactly what we were in for. The band leader for BB King, or I guess his musical director, was Tony Coleman, TC, and he's the drummer. Great guy. He's played with everybody. Played with BB King for 300 nights a year for 25 years, and so he's the band leader. He was kind of the band leader a couple of years ago, and so he's got these two guys that play with him, and it's the Silent Partners, Tony Coleman and the Silent Partners. And so they were going to play with Susan Tedeschi. That's how it was built. And I first learned about it because I got the email from the BB King Museum people, and okay, this sounds interesting. And so I look into it. Tickets are crazy expensive. Like the front 80% of the house was $300 a seat. The back 20% was $150 a seat. That's where I was. So yeah, it was kind of pricey, and we didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if Derek would be there. I had no clue. And so, little tidbits started to trickle out a couple of days before, and we run in there, and it's this long, thin room, and it gets thinner. It's a shoebox with almost like a handle, a wide handle in the back, and the sound was honestly, it was not great. It was okay further up when you got close to the stage. If you're familiar with line array systems, that's what spoils us at concerts these days, because they can point the sound at everything, at where it needs to go, and it's discrete. There's not overlap. With this, you just got 4 speakers at the front and some subs. You crank them up, and the Bobby Tees was with them. He was going back and forth instead of a soundboard in the room, there's a booth. And when you've got a soundboard in a booth, you hear that room. You don't hear the room. You hear the room where the soundboard is. And even though there's a window there, and so he was coming back and forth and trying to tweak it, but it was difficult to hear the lyrics. It was hard to when they spoke between songs. It was hard, and there were a lot of people talking. Really
I did hear about some of these things that you're mentioning.
And,
go on.
And I don't want to put it down. I guess
I don't, and you're not at all in your tone, and I appreciate the honesty, because again, this is like making me feel like I was there, and I did there's a couple of photos with Bobby running around doing his thing on stage. So I really feel like I had the experience, for better or worse. And obviously it's still an amazing experience, but you know what I mean. Like, go on.
Well, stuff like this has, you don't get to put things like this on without a lot of corporate sponsorship and, local sponsorship. And again, I don't know the intimate details, but I'd bet a paycheck that a ton of those people were there based on relationships with, where they work, who they know, the bank or the hotel or the whatever that bought a table, they get to go to that. So these are people who are out for a nice time at the nightclub. Hey, there's some great music playing. I'm going to talk to my buddy about golf if I feel like it. It was not a bunch of rabid Tedeschi Trucks fans. There were some. There definitely some. a lot of people like me. I mean, I drove hours to get there. I sat at a table with a couple from New Orleans. There were people from all over who were, were really motivated. But, you just get that kind of mix. It happens at stuff like this.
And you probably noticed that right away, like shortly after a pine tree, you're kind of like, it's maybe even slightly disappointing or somewhat disappointing, but you kind of like change your expectations, at least in some of these things that you're mentioning, like,
Yeah,
because
I
you're smart and observant, and it's not your first rodeo and all that.
Yeah, I struggle with acceptance on that sort of thing because I go in and with like this reverence for music, and I want to hear these people do make the building disappear and do something that is really going to connect. It's a spiritual experience at its finest, and I didn't get one of those. Maybe if somebody else had one of those, well, that's awesome. Glad they did, but that was not my experience. But I mean, the music was great, and it was just it was hot outside. The air conditioning was blowing cold inside. The place smelled like fish grease. Everybody had a pile of empties on the table, and it was just a big old party. And they played blues covers. I think the only original Tedeschi Trucks tune they played was La Di Da. Susan did Just Won't Burn. Other than that, it was covers, and a lot of it was jams with other people. And I made, let's see,
I got it right here.
It was like 4.5 hours of music. It was crazy how long
that is crazy. And Derek and Susan were on stage for a large chunk of it, I'm guessing.
A good chunk of it, yeah.
Because these are all songs that they play. You got Just Won't Burn and La Di Da. Well, yeah, Just Won't Burn is a Susan song, but the only TTB song original.
Yeah.
They
started out with about 45 minutes of Tony Coleman with Russell Jackson and Jonathan Ellison, and those are the silent partners. Then Kenny Neal came up with him. He's South Louisiana blues guy, great. He's one of these really charismatic, great front people. Drives a bitchin' car. He's got like a 1949 Buick that's immaculate. It's at the hotel. Anyway, he Hoochie Coochie Man, Little Red Rooster, blues standards with him. And then he leaves, and the Tony Coleman and his guys play for little bit longer. And then when it was time for Susan and Derek to come on, they turned everything off, and it was about a 30-minute changeover. They'd done a sound check earlier in the day. Somebody told me, so that was pretty casual. They didn't have a whole lot of work to do, I don't think. But they opened up with "Got My Mojo Working," and I've never heard them play that before. And so that we know this is not a regular gig, and it's a 4-piece band. So Isaac was on drums, and Brandon was on bass, and it was Derek and Susan. Everybody sat down except Susan. Derek was sitting in a chair over on stage right the whole time, and that was different too. But it's Derek being Derek. He can still do that sitting down, apparently. So yeah, I got my mojo working. And popularized by Muddy Waters. Voodoo Woman was the next one. Coco Taylor tune, which I'm pretty sure that's one that Susan used to play in her solo shows. Crawfish on My Shoulder, Looking Dead at You. They did Must Have Done Somebody Wrong. And then the 2 originals, La Di Da and Just Won't Burn. They played Outside Woman Blues, that most people know from Cream. So old Blind Joe Reynolds did that one first. They did Hound Dog, which was Big Mama Thornton's song.
Susan sang on that?
Yeah.
Was anyone recording audio? Do you know anything about any official or unofficial?
No. There's a guy
video or audio.
a guy I know from Central Arkansas who likes to tape stuff and has taped a couple of things, Tedeschi Truck shows. I made sure he knew about it, but I guess it was just too rich for him. He didn't make it. Let's see what else. Woman, be wise. Don't advertise your man. That's
they've done that a couple of times at least. TTB.
Yeah, that was a cool one. I guess a good deal of these are ones that are straight out of their regular rotation.
Just, that makes sense.
Stripped down kind of versions of it.
Yeah, it's interesting to even hear the Derek and Susan play over at the Jeff Beck tribute, playing songs that TTB plays a lot, but in a different style or tempo, and just to hear them play their songs, but with, so to speak, but with different artists and musicians, that gives it a whole different spin and feel.
Yeah, it definitely had a different feel. And I was, I like to, I'm not an archivist. I like to have a few little artifacts from shows, and I'll maybe 3 or 4, sometimes half a dozen songs. I'll pop out the phone, and if I can do it discreetly without distracting myself. I don't want to be looking at my screen the whole time, which makes for a shitty video actually. But again, that's not my priority. But the sound was just too rough where I was. It would not have been, worth the effort to, pull it out and try to make any kind of a record of it, because it would have been mostly people talking.
You made an executive decision.
I did. And, and be in the moment. I wanted to be there and be a full participant. So we just, boogied in place, and the night kind of it evolved is what it did. They got down through How Blue Can You Get? And at that point, it was kind of a rave up ending, kind of like Tedeschi Trucks will do it. But some different musicians had come up on stage by that point. And then the next one was, I guess they swapped out drummers, and Brandon stayed up there. And so Tony Coleman is back. And I think Tony was on How Blue Can You Get? And a guy named Little Ray Neal. And Little Ray is in that photograph. He's the guy in the blue shirt with the big Gibson. And so, they kind of switch gears and go into jam mode. And Little Ray Neal played with everybody: Little Milton, Bobby Bland, B.B. King. He's just a veteran, really nice guy. I got to meet him this morning. And he did an old standard Roosevelt Sykes tune called Driving Wheel that literally everybody has done. Al Green, Junior Parker, look it up. Everybody's got a cover of Driving Wheel. And that was really cool. And then this guy, DK Harrell, shows up. And DK Harrell is a pretty young blues guy from Ruston, North Louisiana. He's got kind of a B.B. King style about him, and he's really good. I've kind of watched for him a bunch of different times, seen him he was at the one 2 years ago, seen him around Arkansas a little bit. And in fact, he'll be in town at a house party next week, and I'll be there. But he sang lead vocals on The Thrill Is Gone. And I kind of thought that was going to be the finale, and wondered if that was the end of the music, but it wasn't by a long shot. So Derek and Susan stayed up on stage through Thrill Is Gone. And then at that point, Derek and Susan left, and DK Harrell left, and it's almost a whole nother band. And they just kept on playing. It was not, there was no interruption in the music. At least not substantially, maybe a few minutes until they got it together. And I was struggling with a couple of things. I didn't know I couldn't understand the lyrics to Driving Wheel, and it sounded so familiar. What is that tune? And I wanted to go and I wanted to ask somebody. I asked a couple of people in the crowd. Nobody knew. But then I could see all the way to the back, and like, you know what? I think the band's hanging around back there. I think they know. So I just walked outside, and I walk up to DK Harrell and asked him about the thing. I was wearing a snazzy jacket. He thought I was somebody. I'm sorry to disappoint him, but and then here comes Susan and Kenny Neal, and they sang a line of Driving Wheel for me, which, well, okay, thanks. And then they impromptu sang a couple of lines of the Jimmy Reed song, My Babe. It's like, okay, pinch me. And
wait, so who sang these songs again? What is people are singing to you because you're wearing a jacket? Do I got to get another jacket? What is happening?
We're just standing around at the back door, and I wanted to know who a couple of people on stage were, and I wanted to know the name of that song. So I just walked back there and asked. And meanwhile, my date is inside wondering where I am, so I didn't stay back there very long, and I didn't want to bug them. So off I went, and after there'd been about half an hour of this other group of musicians playing, then it was they had this big final jam, and it was more led by Kenny Neal on lead vocals. He did Big Boss Man and Please Be Good to Me, and in the middle there's I got the video that's about 15 minutes long that I posted. That's I'll Play the Blues for You, with a woman who I still don't know who sang that. And there was a kid up there. He was really good. Looked like he was maybe 14, 15 years old. And he was solid. He was really good.
And Susan and Derek were still playing at this point, past The Thrill Is Gone on the set.
They came back.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
They came back.
That's cool.
And,
damn.
Yeah. And so, it was kind of the everybody orchestra at that point. And, big messy jam session. They're trading, different trading licks back and forth, and everybody gets a solo, and sometimes it worked pretty well, sometimes not so much, but it's unrehearsed, it's loose, it's everybody's having a blast.
Was Derek conducting or orchestrating or band leading in some capacity?
Not until the very end, and you can see it on my video where they brought the house lights up. I guess it was just, it's time to go, everybody. And the house lights came up, and they were trying to end the song, and he puts his finger up and just, no, we need to, he didn't want it to be.
They probably, they didn't want to be what?
Oh, I think he didn't want it to just sort of, stumble to an end. He wanted to do something that was cool. And he did, he's got a lot of cards up his sleeve. So yeah, I mean that's on the video. It wasn't anything earth shattering, but it was a blast, and it was Derek being Derek. Those all those people really respect him, respect Susan, and the main thing, it just kind of seems like they're all extremely friendly and casual with one another. There's no room for egos and power trips in a thing like that. I mean, you've got everybody has access to the parking lot. I don't even know if there's much of a dressing room there.
Yeah, such a cool play. Who wrote the set list? Because I saw La Di Da spelled with an H. That was not Susan, Derek, or Bobby, I'm guessing.
That was me.
That was you.
That's my set list, scratched out on the back of the receipt from.
It looks pretty. It looks official, but rough is all. I was like, I figured you got a set list, but you don't even know if they even have their own set list.
I never saw one.
They had an idea of what songs they're like. Let's do that. Let's do that when somebody just calls it out. Essentially, is that how?
Like, we're gonna play the blues. And
right,
these are all standards. They know them.
If Derek was band leading and Bobby was in charge of sound, and they both had the time to commit to those roles. It would have been a totally different thing. Like, it made me really think of when I had the chance to actually, be fortunate enough to talk to Bobby on the podcast. And I remember him saying, like, the maybe this is especially probably more early on in his career, but like, he would go to these different gigs, and a lot would depend on the competence and of the team already assembled at the venue, who's operating sound and operations. Like, sometimes he would get great people and everything was easy to put together, and other times there would be lots of challenges, and that just came down to like the quality of the people he's working with. But yeah, it did make me think of that when you were saying, that the reasons why some people are in their positions may not have been the most based on merit per se, but it happens. What is the BB King? I don't know if you know the answer to this, but is the BB King Museum associated with the estate as well, or is it a separate thing, or is it? Because I know that
I'm sure it is. I mean, it's
in some capacity,
or at least he set up a foundation to, kind of guarantee its perpetuity. But his grave is there.
Yeah, it's definitely associated with him or his family or surviving members in some capacity. I do recall there being some contention, as it has happens with like his estate and all that stuff. But they've been super cool to me. The museum, just in limited interaction with them, sharing the podcast stuff and just being nice in general. And maybe I got to get someone from there on at some point. They've been super nice. Yeah, good stuff all around. Where should we? What else you got? I feel like, yeah, I'm just enjoying listening to you. I'm trying to take notes so I don't forget to ask something if I think of something. But yeah, I just feel like I was there. I mean, I joke telling other people that these recaps make me feel like I was there, in part because I get a sense of what the venue even smells like when you get there. Multiple people have told me what the venues smell like on the recaps, and it makes it feel like a totally visceral experience. Thank you for the comments, by the way, David Flam earlier. I feel like I got to go. Fantastic recap to an not usual gig for sure. Yeah, definitely outside the box. Did you drive from Arkansas? You drove? No, where are you from?
Yeah, I live in Little Rock, so it's about we drive down to the southeast corner of the state, cross the Mississippi River at Greenville, and Indianola is about, I don't know, 30 miles from there. But the Mississippi Delta is not it's from north to south is a couple hundred miles. East to west is only, I don't know, it's not that far from the river to the hills, 40 miles maybe. But just a few, short drive from there, you can go to Robert Johnson's grave. You can see the Mississippi John Hurt home place. And
you've been to all these places?
Yeah. Yeah. There's, I mean, like, I was going to try to find Sonny Boy Williamson's grave in Tutwiler, Mississippi. And I pull up and there's what's left of a train depot and a sign that says, "This is where W.C. Handy first heard somebody play the blues and took the idea back and arranged it for his band in Memphis." That literally the originator of the blues. And I guess important thing to think about with Dockery and Charlie Patton and all that is, the blues does not predate recorded music by very much, maybe a generation. And, there are the things that, the ingredients that made the blues go back further than that. But, it's a fairly young music. 100 years is not that long. And, we've been kind of witnesses to this amazing evolution, in real time of, stuff going from the front porch of a sharecropper's shack to electrified in Chicago to, psychedelic ballrooms in the 60s to what we're seeing on the stage with Tedeschi trucks. And there's a through line through every last bit of it. And these guys sniff it out. They're really interested in the spirit of where all that music came from.
I feel like I mean, obviously it's hard to define, maybe for some people, what exactly the blues is, what that means, but it does make me think about, like, even just structurally, broadly speaking, like what is that? It's certain chord progressions, but it's also like the sound of Derek slide guitar, of like a vocalist, the way they bend those notes and make their instrument, be it a voice or a guitar or something else, kind of cry in a way that maybe didn't exist musically before. Like, Beethoven couldn't really bend a note on the piano. Really, unless he had a
Yeah.
Casio or something like that. But I don't know. I think musically, that a big part of what it is. It's certain traditional progressions and the way those just appeal and grow on the human ear, combined with the melodic quality of a vocally sounding guitar, instrument, voice, or whatever. Is it those two things that really make up the blues musically, or is it something, or is what else? What is it?
Well, I mean,
Explain it to me.
it's got a structure. I'm not a musician. I can't, I can talk about music. I can't play it. I guess
I try to do both.
I know it when I hear it, but the beyond the structure and the arrangement of what they call the blues, whether it's a 12 bar or 8 bar or whatever, and the rhyming patterns and there are kind of these predictable elements, especially in the older stuff. I'll never forget an interview might have been an interview that I did with Derek. I'm not sure what, but he was talking about the similarities between, like, this North African stuff that sounds kind of blues derivative. That's probably part of the predecessor to it to some ways. But he was just talking about world music, this North Sahara stuff that's guitar based, and sitar stuff from India, and how there's similarities in the way the microtones and things are expressed in these different things. And what he boiled it down to, he said, it's all the same thing. This is all the sound of human longing.
Right. That's kind of what I was trying to articulate, that with the like the crying, the long, yeah. And something about that really touches the soul, not to be trite or cliche or something like that. But yeah, it's interesting that, like, those microtones probably came to be because there's music, as far as I understand, in every single culture. Like, and there's different cradles of civilization all over the world. So it's like, within all these cradles of civilization, eventually they found microtones and their own version of the blues, so to speak. Like, that's, part of, I guess, what makes music such a universal language, is because it's almost like innate to people and cultures.
Well, it's to me, the blues is just extremely powerful music that speaks to how we experience life as human beings. And there's a lot of other things that affect people that way that are completely unrelated. But this is it's kind of the one that I've glommed onto as being especially meaningful to me. And it's fascinating to me to kind of balance all of this stuff that it's super easy to learn about from a historical standpoint, and to see what those lines between what we're listening to now and this the headwaters, so to speak. There's just a whole lot of amazingly creative music that's available to us. That's it's the roots to all this stuff. And something I like, I heard Bob Dylan is one of the weirdest human beings on the planet, I think. But I don't believe a lot of the stuff he says in interviews. But he said that he can listen to a Carter Family record from the from the 30s, and it sounds just as new as something that he could listen to on the radio right now. And I strive for that. I want to be able to appreciate the humanity in a 75-year-old recording the same way I do something that comes out next week, because
I believe that
there's nothing inherently valuable about the one that comes out next week other than it's novel.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I'm totally like in agreement with Bob Dylan, at least on at least on that. Like, I kind of feel the same way. Obviously, if you're listening to like a recording from 1929, it's like the dude playing the slide guitar with the spoon and all this stuff, and it's crackling in the background. That may not evoke the same exact feelings as a crisp vinyl record or whatever, today's day and age. But like, just to think about like Satisfaction, listening to the Rolling Stones song, it still pops. That's kind of like the way I kind of like frame it. It doesn't it's not necessarily new, but it pops and it makes you feel a lot of the same ways that you felt when you first maybe heard that song, or a different song that makes you feel that way. I don't know. And that makes me think about how I feel about I Am the Moon. Like it is new. It's, relatively speaking, obviously coming out last year, but I feel like I've listened to these songs for like 10 years at this point. Like, they're just like, they're old TTV songs. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in like a great way, that they're like familiar, but also still pop, and obviously we all cycle through our favorites of the day, of the week, of the moment. And then, oh, I remember this one. I haven't heard this song. I haven't been listening to this one as much. Oh, this one's great. So I don't know. Things do pop for me in that way, I guess.
Sure.
What else should we cover? I think we covered
I don't know.
bunch.
If anybody knows who the kid was, I'd love to know. And the lady who sang on that, I'll play the blues for you. On the video that I posted, I went and found some, just general information or links to most of the musicians there. It's worth a dive down a rabbit hole to check out. Little Ray Neal and Mickey Rogers, folks like that.
Yeah, so jealous, Tim. Dockery Farms was such a cool venue and show, but this one with lots of blues standards and BB connections, just wow. So David Flam, I believe, went to the Dockery Farm show. We probably talked about it for
all. He did indeed. I think that was before we met. I actually first laid eyes on David in where? Oh,
they all kind of blend together. Tony Coleman has a lot to say about the blues. I'll stop now, says Terra Nova T. Well, if anyone is qualified to try to figure out what the blues is, it's definitely two white guys born after whatever years we're born.
Right.
No, but it like I was saying, it's universal, and it's universal around the world. Like that's kind of the conclusion that I'm reaching from this what the hell is the blues conversation.
For reasons I cannot explain, there's some part of me that wants to see Graceland.
Were you a big Elvis fan, or?
No, that's just a quote from the Paul Simon song Graceland. Oh. And to me, that is about connecting across the culture and feeling it, understanding that you don't have to be from a culture to be moved by it. But that's the moment I say that, I say, well, but it's all American culture. We've got a we have
the best music,
beautiful rainbow of sounds that are coming at us from a lot of different directions. And the cool thing about Club Ebony being open, staying open is, it's an opportunity for that institution to maintain the music and the community around it. There's a lot of that's dying off, in a lot of places, and the increasing Walmartization of our culture. These unique places that are dedicated to, keeping really valuable cultural, art alive is, it's huge. There's no substitute for it. You can't manufacture history.
Very true. My apologies to anyone who's listening on audio, because I will put out an audio episode of this, that I did not necessarily describe some of the photos that I shared on the video podcast or read the set list top to bottom. But I think we covered a lot. I do have a photo up right now of Susan taking her own photos and videos, and that just goes to show you and reflects exactly what you're describing, how important this history and this venue and this music is to Susan and to the band and to to everyone in TTB, but especially to Susan and Derek as they continue to do their part in supporting the legacies of great artists that have come before them.
So, and one last thing that I'll mention, when I was stumbling up to the back door, DK Harrell asked Susan, "Why didn't you sing The Thrill Is Gone?" And her response was, "No, I just wanted you to do it." It was clear that she had such a reverence just for the song that she almost, it's like, I'm not worthy sort of thing. I can't do that. You please, you do it, because I'm it's, she would have killed it. That's, she sang it 2 years ago, but I thought it was kind of cool that she deferred to the 24-year-old guy, who's fantastic. DK Harrell's got a record coming out in 2 weeks. Everybody should buy 3.
Very cool. No, that is kind of what I suspected about Susan and Derek in terms of how they approach. They do play their fair share of iconic covers, of course, but there's a reason they don't play Layla every night, Layla the song every night, and there's a reason they are very often or at all, unless like with Trey Anastasio at Locken or something like that, like for a real special event. But there's a reason they avoid that. I'm trying to think of another song, but that's the one that like jumps out. Like for the same reason they don't play Layla is the same reason they don't play The Thrill Is Gone, is the same reason they don't play insert number one clearly iconic song of past artists. Like they don't play whatever the Billie Jean is of the blues world or something like that. Like they prefer to dive dive into the deep cuts, I think, of artists if they can, other than Allman Brothers and Derek and the Domino stuff, which everything is kind of on the table.
Well,
but Mountain Jam, yeah, they haven't but that's a whole different animal, doing a long ass jam type song like as a cover. But they do Liz Reed, so but TTB hasn't really done Mountain Jam, have they?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah, it's interesting that they haven't, because like obviously but even Liz Reed that's typically something with a guest, another guitar player. Yeah. So even that's still a special occasion. But yeah, it just goes to show their reverence for if that's the right word, for the music and whatnot. I'm rambling now. What else you got? Anything else we need to cover?
No, I think I probably need fresh air and walk the dog.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you on that for sure. Thank you again for the time. I really appreciate the time and the stories and the recap. You done good. You're welcome on anytime. Keep going to gigs and come back on. And I'll try to get you. We'll try to get some others on for you to recap the show with.
All right.
Someone who had that shared experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to throw some money in a shoebox so I can see something on somewhere. Right now, there's nothing on tap.
That's cool. All good. I appreciate it again. I'll let you get on with the rest of your evening, get some fresh air, and we'll talk more soon. Thanks again, Tim.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Cheers. So there you go. Episode 118, recapping Susan Tedeschi and Derek Trucks as well at Club Ebony in Indianola, Mississippi, put on by the B.B. King Museum. That was fun. Hope everyone is doing okay out there. Please check out TedeschiTrucksPodcast.com. That's the way to subscribe and follow everything related to this show. AdamChoik.com for all my personal stuff. At Adam Choik is my social media. TedeschiTrucksBand.com is their official website. Buy tickets to shows, buy merch, join the Swamp Family Club. There's an app now. That is cool. Lots of cool stuff you can only get on there. They were putting out these short videos, just kind of like behind the scenes, more behind the scenes stuff, which I requested and I appreciate. And answering fan questions and whatnot and other videos. And there's just a lot of good content on there. So definitely check that out, TedeschiTrucksBand.com. Like I said, I'm going to try to put out planning to put out a recap on of the Jeff Beck tribute show this Tuesday at what is today? I don't even know. Today is the 4th and then 5th. So let's do that on the 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be posting that in various platforms so people are aware of that. But I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening and for the support. I appreciate the band, the crew, Susan, Derek, all the fans. I think I hit everything there. Gonna watch what do we got? The Nuggets and Miami in the finals. Game 2 starting soon, so I'm gonna probably watch that and try to get some more stuff done tonight and get that audio episode out of this podcast episode soon, maybe later tonight or tomorrow, definitely soon. But yes, everyone enjoy the rest of your day, evening, and let's talk soon. Peace.